Hello and welcome to Inside China Auto and welcome to Ningbo. Today we are here to drive this, the XPeng MONA M03, which is the first car from XPeng's new sub-brand, which is designed to bring their artificial intelligence and technology specialism to a more affordable price band. This car, believe it or not, is going to cost between 100,000 and 150,000 RMB. And if we find the exact price out before the embargo for this video lifts, I will insert a clip in there to give you the exact numbers for this car. Now we only have it for a few hours today, which means this video is going to be a bit more rough and ready than our other videos. It means we're going to be able to give you kind of an overview of the design and the interior, the quality of the materials, and a little bit of the driving, but I can't give you kind of, in-depth driving experiences on various different roads and things like real world consumption figures. We'll have to basically go with the figures that XPeng give us on this car. But what is MONA? MONA stands for Made of New AI. And that is because this car is a collaboration between XPeng and Didi, which is basically China's version of Uber, one of many in the ride-hailing area. And this is the kind of car that they have come up with. The M03, by the way, stands for Model 3. So the boss of XPeng is a bit of a fan of the Tesla Model 3. And what XPeng have tried to do in this car is get as much of the comfort and technology of a Model 3 into a car at a much lower price point. As you can see, it doesn't really look like an XPeng in terms of the style. And what we've learned is that this car was designed by Didi and the engineering and production is managed by XPeng. So you can see the styling doesn't really look like an XPeng as such. It's kind of got a different face. We've got these because of, to be polite, kind of rocket or plane shaped headlamps here. We've got these light units at the top and bottom and this our daytime running light across here. You can see it's a really, really sleek design, not only in terms of looks, but also on paper as well. The drag coefficient on this car is just 0.194, making it the world's most drag efficient hatchback in the world. And yes, it is a hatchback. I'll tell you about that when I get towards the back of the car. But let's discuss that styling. As I said, super sleek. You can see we've got quite a low nose down here. In order to achieve that 0.194 drag coefficient, we've got a few aero efficiency things on there. So we've got an active grille down there that opens and closes to kind of, improve the efficiency of the car. And believe it or not, XPeng says that the active aero on this car enables it to have 60 kilometers of extra range compared to a car without those features. So you see we've got quite large flared arches down here, swooping nose down to the bottom. And if you follow me around to the side, you'll see that we have down here, these are the 19-inch wheels. You can get 18-inch wheels on the standard car, 19 on the higher variants of this car. These are quite fancy. I like these, very techy, very stylish, super low profile on this. Of course, we've got cameras because we have to do kind of 360-degree parking and things like that. Along the side here, pop-out door handles, again, little aero features on there, every little counts. And down the side here, kind of a pinched bottom just to kind of hide the weight of the battery electric car. It looks pretty sleek to me. They've gone for a lot of horizontal lines across here. It looks very stylish. And notice here too as well, we have the coloured A-pillar going all the way across the top, but then we've got a black roof. So from above, this car looks really quite sleek from the top. And then as we come down towards the back, we've got kind of a floating C-pillar down here. And this is what I was telling you about. We have a hatchback at the back. Now, China is saloon country. Most cars are saloons or SUVs. Hatchbacks are pretty new in China. But this one is quite useful because pop that up, of course, electronic tailgate, also good as well. In here, believe it or not, we have 621 litres of space, which I think is the biggest boot of any Chinese car that I have driven so far. Absolutely bags of room in there. And if you've been in a Chinese taxi trying to get all of your suitcases to the airport, you'll know exactly the struggles that people go through trying to find that space. In here, no problem. You'll be able to fit a 28-inch suitcase and 4 20-inch suitcases in there, no problem. Now, if that space isn't enough, you can fold the rear seats down, 40-60 as well, to get up to 1,603 litres of space as well, and a load area of up to 1.8 metres. It's not totally flat when you fold those seats down, but it's certainly better than most cars that you'd be trying to pack your stuff into the back of. So it's really interesting that they've gone with the hatchback profile on this. And you can see fairly neat design at the back as well. It's kind of quite rounded and swoopy. It's got little hints of XPeng P7 in there. Kind of the rounded spoiler here at the back. They've gone for the mirror of the front lights at the back here. Maybe they look better at the front than they do at the back. A little bit more weird at the back, I've got to say. But then we've got kind of a spoiler down there. You've got kind of more plastics at the bottom. It looks pretty stylish from the outside, I have to say. As I mentioned earlier, this car has been kind of benchmarked against a Tesla Model 3 in terms of the comfort levels they want to offer, technology and things like that as well. But of course, they're doing it at a much lower price point in here. Nevertheless, it does still feel like quite a well-made car. it does feel like it has a lot of soft surfaces. Not a lot of leather in terms of this car, but you do get squidgy surfaces on the top. You get fabric in the doors, little touches of chrome here and there. But overall, it's a very simplistic interior. One that is quite similar to the Model 3, and it doesn't have the screen behind the steering wheel here. The only thing you get is this 15.6-inch screen in the middle. This runs on the Snapdragon 8155 processor, although XPeng will tell you that it runs almost as fast in terms of the feel as the 8295. You see, it does a really nice job of this 3D model of the car there, and with that you can open the electronic tailgate in there as well. Now this system, a little bit more difficult to use than normal XPeng systems. They haven't gone for the toolbar at the bottom, so it does take a bit of time finding things in here. You have to click on the search function there to get to the maps, but the maps themselves really quite nice. You zoom in here, you see we've got kind of a 3D modeling of these trees on the road and this kind of elevated highway or kind of a roadway, a train line, something along the lines there. So it's actually quite nice. The model of the Beijing bird's nest, for example, is very nice. So the maps look pretty cool. You've also got 360-degree camera. Not quite exactly 360-degree camera, it's actually 4 cameras around the car that you can select to see from different angles, but at least it's better than on some other systems. And then you've got drag up from the bottom, I think it is, to get rid of this screen. Somewhere it's on there, hang on, we'll get rid of it eventually. Not the easiest thing. There we go, so we've got out of that. Now, you do get a lot of apps in here, so there's an app store in there for your music, your films, your TV, and things like that. One of the things that is quite smart about this car, and again you've got to swipe out from the bottom there, is that instead of having to be in the music app to watch to read the lyrics for your song, for example, actually they will play across the bottom. If you have your map on, you get your lyrics across the bottom, as well as some other fancy animations in there as well. There's also some interesting things like virtual prayer beads, because a lot of kids in China these days are kind of turning to Buddhism. They want to relax a little bit and get away from the hustle and bustle of life. Of course, you get your ventilation at the bottom, which you can still control like that. You have to click into it and adjust all your fans in there and stuff. You also get, by the way, heated and ventilated seats on this car as well. But that's the system. It's pretty slick, but it does take a bit of getting used to, and it does come with a 4G chip in there, but not a 5G chip. Speaking of the seats that I mentioned, these are actually fairly comfortable. They have decent base cushion length, not massive amounts of adjustability. You can move them kind of up and down, 6-way adjustment basically on these seats. As I said, heating, ventilation, you get pretty big side bolsters in here, so it does feel quite comfortable. They do feel quite soft and squishy, and it doesn't feel like you sit too high in this car. You get a good view, you're not kind of sat right up here, you're not all the way down here. So overall, it's fairly balanced. Again, fairly minimalistic. You get twin cup holders in the middle, not the biggest in the world, so bigger cups might struggle in there. You get a 50-watt wireless charger here, but it's not ventilated, so your phone might get a little bit warm. You've got storage spaces all over in the doors here, under the dash, in the middle there, and in the glove box as well. You also get USB-C and USB-A sockets there in a little pocket at the front. And overall, I mean, it feels quite nice. One of the big things about this car is you get an 18-speaker sound system. So you'll see speakers at the bottom of the base pillar, up here, down at the doors. 18 speakers, that's quite a lot of stuff. A lot of Chinese youth like to sit in their cars and enjoy films and TV on the screen inside the car just because it's comfortable, and they like going out and enjoying life a different way than we do in the West. So 18 speakers is very, very good. And also 7.1.4 surround sound, so it should be quite a good system. We've also got ambient lighting in here, so there's a strip all around the back of the dashboard there. That's the longest in this class for a single strip of LEDs. And we also get coming down the doors here as well. Overall, we get 3 colours in this car. The grey looks fairly average. You can get blue and also, I believe, a darker grey from this as well. As I said, it's minimalistic, but it's comfortable. It's pretty much adequate, I would say, for what you would expect in a car of this price point. But of course, there are more tech smarts that are more useful once we get out on the road. Let's first of all check out the back seat. In the back, you can see that space is a little bit tighter than that in the front, particularly down there by my feet. This seat is as low as it'll go, not a lot of foot room down there. This seat is slightly further forward, so it does exaggerate the legroom a bit, but there's still plenty of knee room at least. Headroom, I would say, is fairly borderline. I've got quite a tall haircut here, and it's just about brushing on the bottom of the glass, but XPeng have at least tried to give you full support with this base cushion. You can see it's really quite steeply raked there, so it does give you more support up on the bottom of your legs. It's not the worst in terms of space, but it's kind of adequate for what you would expect at this price point. And there's not a lot of niceties back here. You do get ventilation, which you can control the angle of there, turn it off and on. You get twin USB-C sockets, pockets on the back of the front seat and in the door as well. Of course, you've got those speakers all around the car as well. One thing that does help the space in the back of the car is this panoramic sunroof, which is 1.22 square meters, so that's a lot of lighting. And right now the sun is directly in my eye line, but it's not blinding me at all. So doing a really good job of keeping the UV rays out and kind of hiding that a little bit, like having a giant pair of sunglasses above your head. But there's not else much going on really in terms of here. As I said, you can fold these rear seats down, but there is no armrest in the middle. They do have Isofix mounts, but unfortunately they've gone for this kind of folded between two webs of fabric. I can tell you from experience, I don't have my baby seat with me today, but from experience, that is a real pain in the arse to try and get your car seat kind of mountings into there. So that's not going to be the easiest in the world, but it's not that bad, as I said. Fairly comfortable. Long journeys should be all right for a person of my height. A bit taller, you might be struggling a little bit, but overall, it's okay. Okay, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we don't have a massive amount of time driving the car in too many circumstances, and I think we've got quite a lot of traffic lights on the route. So it's going to be a bit stop-start this one. I'll try and give you as much information about the car as I can. Now, it does come with two powertrains, both of them rear-wheel drive. The least powerful one is 140 kilowatts, 225 Newton meters of torque. The more powerful version is 160 kilowatts, 250 Newton meters of torque. That will get you to 100 kilometers per hour in 7.4 seconds, which isn't really particularly slow. It's not particularly fast. It's fairly average. I mean, for cars of this size, generally they have about 200 kilowatts, 140, 160 is adequate, and certainly with an electric drivetrain, it's certainly quick enough and it's quiet enough. I mean, we haven't tested it on too many high-speed roads yet, but it's very, very quiet. You don't really get any motor whine. What you do get between 0 and 30 kilometers per hour is this kind of low-speed noise that tries to make pedestrians aware of what's going on while you're driving. Obviously, you can't hear it now because we're stopped at some traffic lights. In terms of batteries, there's a choice of two. The smaller of the two, they're both LFP batteries. They're both Blade batteries made by a BYD subsidiary called FinDreams. The smaller one is a 51.8 kilowatt hour battery, and that is good for 515 kilometers of range on the CLTC cycle, which is generally pretty generous. But we haven't been able to test that while we've been driving out on the road today. Obviously, we don't really have enough time to do a full test of the efficiency of that. What I can say is XPeng have told us somebody did a really long journey where they completely emptied the battery, and they were able to get something like 9-point-something kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is even better than the claimed 11.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which, by the way, is incredibly efficient. The larger of those two batteries, as I mentioned, is a 62.2 kilowatt hour battery. That will get you 620 kilometers of range on a single charge, again on CLTC. So the general rule of thumb is take about 20 to 25% off. That being said, if you do hypermiling, like the other XPeng person did in the car, then apparently you can do even better than that. So it's not a given that it won't achieve the full rating. In fact, XPeng do say that it will achieve 88% of the stated range, which is much better than the Model 3, which only achieves 80% of the claimed range. So fairly impressive numbers there in terms of the efficiency of the drivetrain. Now, the charging for that is about 26 minutes, I believe, from 30 to 80%. The smaller battery, I think, does something like 72 kilowatts fast charging, and the larger battery 90 something kilowatts. So not the fastest in the world, but again, I mean, this is a pretty affordable car, so we're not expecting the full high-speed charging experience that you might otherwise get in an XPeng. But that'll do the job. Most people can survive. You can get 200 kilometers of range in a 15-minute charge, and for most people that will easily get them back and forth across town during their daily commute. Now, the overall driving experience so far, I have to say, has been really comfortable. XPeng have worked really hard on the NVH of this car, the noise, vibrations and harshness. As I said, it's certainly been very quiet. Right now, we've actually got a bit of a choppy road, and honestly, it's going over all of this stuff really quite comfortable. There's no kind of scuttle shake in the cabin. There's no real bounce around. There's no hard lumps coming through. So the suspension is doing a really nice job here. And XPeng also say that this car has both a lower center of gravity than the Model 3. It's also got a really tight turning circle of just 5.3 meters, which is even smaller than the Smart Hashtag 1, believe it or not. And it's also apparently got even better cornering performance than 400,000 RMB car from BBA. That is the Chinese name for Audi, Mercedes-Benz and BMW. So some pretty impressive claims there from XPeng. Hopefully at some point, if we do get a longer drive in this car, and do let us know in the comments below if you would prefer or would like to have a longer range review of this car. We'll try and get one in the future, then we can test that. Now here's a good test. We're on a kind of a metal bridge at the moment. Apart from the noise of the bridge, which obviously is going to make a lot of noise, that was good. A lot of kind of bumpy stuff going on the road there. You might be able to see it from the rear view camera there, but that was good. And I'm pretty impressed actually. The steering is light, as you would expect, but it does tighten up if you put the car into sport mode, as we have now. So it's got a bit more feel to it in sport mode. In the comfort mode, it's super light, pretty much fingertip light. It'll just go round and round, no problem at all. As I said, that turning circle is really quite valuable. That'll make parking a lot easier. Speaking of parking, we're actually just about to drive to a tech park, because this car is capable of parking in sort of vertical spaces, diagonal spaces, freestyle spaces, with lines or without. And we're going to go and test that out now and see just how good it is at doing that. Before we get to that, I'll quickly mention the autonomous driving functions. It does, of course, come with level 2 autonomous driving. So there's no LiDAR, it's not kind of like super fancy, it's not an urban autonomous driving. It does come with adaptive cruise control, comes with lane keeping assist. It does come, of course, with that automatic parking as well. So I believe you can use it in a city in order to stay in the lines and not crash into the car in front, but it's best suited for the highway and for kind of elevated highways like we have now. You can activate that by pulling down on the controller here, but I believe it's telling us that maybe we have a passenger in the back without a seatbelt on, and therefore we can't use it. That could be the case. I can't read the Chinese on there. One other thing I want to show you before we get going, this is quite interesting, and I'm wondering if you can hear this, because we're going to go onto kind of a high-speed road now. I did mention earlier the Buddhist temple feature that they have here in the system. It's called Muyu, which means wooden fish, and it's equivalent to, you know, if you've seen people kind of holding their rosary beads and kind of playing with them in their hands and making noises with them. And if you go to the temple, there's a kind of a noise where you can kind of tap this wooden fish and kind of find your soul, find your spirit and make it peaceful again. You can activate that by clicking in the top corner of this screen here. And then if you rotate this ball here on the right side of the screen, you hear that? I can feel my soul coming back to my body already actually pressing that. It's quite nice. This is a really fun feature actually. It's silly, honestly, it's a little thing. But apparently a lot of young customers, this is what they like to do. They like to buy these beads, like to play. There's also the bead noise, by the way. I can change it to the beads. There you go. So you can just roll that and it counts how many times you've done it. So they're like prayer beads. You can essentially make say prayers and play with the beads. So I just wanted to show you that little fun feature on there with the steering wheel. So yeah, that's kind of the driving experience. As you can see, we are doing like 97 kilometers per hour now. It's still pretty quiet in here. The road noise isn't too bad. Let's try that autonomous drive. Oh, here we go. We've got autonomous driving on again now. So now we can use it. This works in apparently, I think it's 56 cities across China, i.e. the elevated highways in those 56 cities. And I mean, right now we're keeping a distance to the car in front. We can probably adjust that with the left button. Let's see. Maybe it's the right button. Oh, there we go, yeah. You can adjust the distance with the right side controller. So sometimes it feels like it's a little bit the other way around. Different car companies do it on different sides. But you can see, in fact, we've even got some kind of, there we go. It's asking me to put my hands on the wheel. And there you go. So that's the kind of the driving experience. I'll just swipe that out of the way and go back to our maps. So that's the driving experience. Honestly, it's very comfortable as far as I can tell at this moment in time. As I said, the driving position is pretty good. I certainly don't feel too high. In a lot of saloon cars, you do feel a bit higher in the seat than you would otherwise like. I think we feel pretty much in the middle here, which is nice. Got a little bit of a slightly more complex road now. The car's doing the steering for itself, which is all good. So yeah, honestly, the system's working really nicely here as well. So yeah, now let's go and take this car and try out the automatic parking function, which, by the way, remember, is camera-based only. There's no LiDAR on here to test kind of the distances to things. We're going camera-based, much like XPeng are doing with their wider XNGP system in their other cars. So before we do that parking thing, I just want to quickly show you. We've gone back to the full screen maps now, and here you can see the lyrics are now literally overlaid on the map, which again is really quite cool. The car's telling me that I'm not paying attention. That's thanks to this little sensor down here. Honestly, I've not even been looking at the road for the last 5 minutes, and we're still driving in a straight line and doing absolutely fine here. Another quick thing, some hand gestures we can use on the screen here. 3 fingers, swipe to the side, we get access to all of our apps over there. Swipe those back out of the way. 4 fingers allows you to zoom out of the map and get the wider view, because you can zoom in with the 4 fingers there. So a few multi-finger gestures as well, well worth showing you. Again, let's get back to the parking. Okay, so now we're going to try out the parking, and the first one we're going to go for is kind of a parking between 2 cars that doesn't have any lines. So we've set up the parking by clicking the parking screen on here. We're going to drive towards them. You might hear some other voices in the background because they're going to guide me on how to use this system here. So there we go. Now you see it's shown up on the screen. We've got parking there. So I'll stop the car. I'll press P and I'll press the start button here. Lift off the steering and the pedals. So that's pretty smart. It's identified that there are 2 cars there and there's a potential space to park in between them. Check that out. So we're going to go in a second time. I believe the accuracy on this is something like 95% with 100% identification of spaces. There are 3 types of parking spaces. One's without lines here, as I mentioned earlier. There's normal parking spaces with lines over there, and there's parallel parking as well. And we're going to give it a go in all of those. So you see, without the lines, it's a bit more difficult. Bear in mind, it's doing this all visually without any LiDAR. So it's working out exactly how to get this space in. But 3rd attempt, and it even actually said that there were going to be 6 steps in there. So it's already knew that in advance. But there you go. It's found our space without lines. And there we are between one Mona and another. So that's the first one done. Now we're going to drive to the one over here. Second one over here. Okay. Right. So let's give our second one a go.
So the same way, you have to tap the P.
Okay. So
yeah, P.
Okay.
And just go ahead.
Okay. So this one's more complicated because it's in a corner with a wall here and cones here. That's going to make it a much bigger challenge for the car. So you can see we've got 1 space, but that's behind a cone. That's the one we want there. Now I'm really interested how this is going to go. This is an interesting one. The car's probably going to calculate it and think about it. I'm guessing it might think about going in forwards. Let's see. Often if a space is in a corner like this, the systems will try and decide, okay, I'll go in forwards instead of backwards. Usually Chinese systems, and actually Chinese drivers, tend to reverse into spaces a lot more than we do in Europe. We tend to, a lot of the time, drive in forwards. But in China, they tend to be, more considerate and reverse into spaces. But there you go. So it's already calculated as 8 steps to getting this right. Oh, actually, no, it's going to go in backwards. Here we go. This is interesting. So actually, it's basically doing the U-turn for us. Very interesting. So we're on step 6 of 8. 7's going to be going forwards, and 8's going to be going backwards in one go. This is impressive. I'll hold that comment until it goes in first time. Let's see. But now onto the step 8. Going to park alongside this G9 next to us. Looking good on the cameras. Check the mirrors. All good there. You know what? That's really cool. That's so good. So actually, there are 4 parking scenarios that we're going to show you, I think. If we do the diagonal ones over there, let's see. But there you go. Okay, so we've done the end space. That was really good. Okay, so one quick thing to mention before we move on. You might notice got quite a decent space to that car over there. You can't really tell from this angle. Maybe you can tell from the external angle. The car is parked to the right of this space. That is purposeful to make sure the driver has got space to get out. Again, that's a really nice consideration. So the next test is standard parking. Let's just drive around here. You can see the lines on the screen. There they are. The camera has identified them. I'm going to just park at an annoying angle. Give the car a chance to go for this space here. Now it's saying 2 steps for this one. It's interesting. Maybe we're going to go in forwards on this one. Looks like we're going in forwards. There you go. Now on the image it actually looks again like we're going to try and park on the right side of this space. Possibly again to give us more space. No, going for the middle. That's good. You can see with the transparent chassis here. That's cool. So basically right in the lines there. That's a nice big space, that one. So that is the third one. The next one is the parallel parking over here. So let's give that a go. We'll reverse out this space. We've got some very helpful camera guys on the outside, making sure that we can do this properly. Okay. So the next challenge is a parallel parking, but we're going to do it a bit differently. So you might be able to see on the camera right here, that's the back of the parking space. This is the bars they put on the parking to make sure that the car's reversing properly. We're going to come at this from the other angle. So I'm going to do a U-turn down here just to throw a spanner in the works for Mona and see what she can do. I'm going to call her Mona. I think that's a good name for her. Let's avoid that bicycle over there and the scooter coming at us. There we go. Again, that turning circle, 5.3 meters, very useful. So now let's quickly swipe out of the 360-degree camera, put on our parking. I think we can swipe it from the bottom. There we go, there's our parking button again. Now let's drive towards the spaces. 2 of them blocked out with cones. And there you go, it's going to identify this space right here. That's the one we're going for. Let's leave it to work. I'll grab a quick drink while it's doing this. 5 moves we've calculated. I'm not advertising Starbucks, by the way. They're not paying me for this drink. Just in case you're wondering. Although Starbucks, if you do want to advertise on the channel, do let us know. There we go. Oh, interesting. Going for an L-shaped parking on this one. Now, of course, on a normal road, you probably wouldn't have the bar at the back. It'd be a bit more simple than this. But it's just a good way to test. And actually, it did tell us we were going to have 5 steps, and it's decided that 3 is enough. So it just goes to show that it can learn and adapt. And there you go. That's how parking scenario is done. So yeah, that's been quite impressive, to be honest. Especially the end parking one. I really liked that. But yeah, fantastic. So that's it for our review of the XPeng MONA M03. As you can see, the light is catching up with us, so I'll make this quick. This is a seriously impressive car for a very impressive price point. A lot of interesting things about this car. A, I would say it looks pretty good, especially better in real life than it does in pictures. It's got a comfortable interior, not the biggest in the world, but certainly comfortable enough. Very useful system and great parking tech. The autonomous driving tech and the parking, both really, really good. Lots of passenger space as well. I think this car should be quite a big success here in China. Let's see how it does in the coming months, and hopefully we'll get a chance to spend a bit more time behind the wheel and really get to know this car in many different scenarios as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you do, thank you for subscribing. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up so more people can see the interesting cars coming out of China. And as ever, we'll catch you next time.